Hello my colouring in friends, it's Cheralyn Darcy here with the next in my series of Florasphere colouring in free tutorials. Now I thought this week I'd answer a lot of your emails and messages that are surrounding the use of mediums that perhaps are a little bit out of your reach at the moment because of expense and because you're not too sure if you're going to like them or not. And sometimes just because of availability, because let's face it, not every store has Prismacolor pens for you to try out and pencils and the wonderful chameleon pens as well. And I'm someone too who likes to try before I buy. So some of these things are really new and we mightn't have friends that we can sort of lean on and have a little play with first. And we mightn't have the money for them at the moment as well. So I thought I would look at ways that you can use things that you might already have and also how to get the best you possibly can out of mediums that are not as expensive, that are entry-level mediums. So I think this will be part one of this, and I'm going to call it Thrifty Colouring in Medium Workshop. How's that? So I'll explore a few of them. If you've got any ideas and if you've stumbled on any discoveries with things like this as well, please email me or stick a comment below on this video because I'm sure that other people would love to see it as well. Until then, may nature always bless you and may you always be a blessing to nature and have fun colouring in. Bye.
Surfaces. It really is important to look at your surfaces if you're looking for vibrancy. I use an old laminate clipboard which is very hard and very flat. I either slip this between the pages of my colouring in book or I tear my sheets out and place them on top, or I use my printed out sheets and place them on top. The other way we colour in, of course, is within the book. So we have a soft surface like this sketchbook, or we put our sheets on a sketchbook, or we put them on one of those compressed wood pulp fibre drawing boards. When we're looking to get more vibrancy from a pencil in particular, we need more friction. And I'll demonstrate the difference between the two. This is an entry-level pencil on a sketchbook. And what we will see is that I'm pressing quite hard here and I don't want to damage the paper, but it can be quite irregular, the shading, and I can't really get a lot of friction, so I can't get a darker colour. Now I'm not pressing any harder. I'm actually, if anything, I think pressing a little lighter. Hopefully you can see the difference there. It's a lot more even than this one, and it is a lot more vibrant. So that's your first thing. Use a hard surface, particularly with entry-level pencils, and you'll get a more vibrant look. When you're looking at entry-level pencils, go to the section in your $2 and discount type stores and look for the supplies that are pitched towards artists. They usually will have a higher pigment count than the things that are pitched towards children. So you're looking for artists, studio, those sorts of terms in the supplies. These are entry-level pencils, colour pencils, and they were called studio pencils. I paid $2 for a packet of 24. I have actually lost the box of these a long time ago. And these are entry-level watercolour pencils. And I paid $2 for the tin, but you can get larger tins. I use these in classes that I teach. I have quite a few and they're good. Now the difference between the two is pretty huge. And if you're looking for some pencils to begin colouring in or to get a more vibrant effect out of entry-level pencils, I would suggest that you always go for the watercolour pencils. And I'm going to show you why. Of course you can use them for watercolour techniques, but that's something I'll show you down the track. This is your entry-level studio ordinary colour pencil, and that is as good as it gets. If I try to press really hard, I'm going to actually wreck the paper. So pressing hard, I am getting a better effect than if I was doing this in my colouring in book, because I have a hard surface. But that's as good as it gets. I like it, it's pretty, but if I'm after vibrancy, I'm not going to be that happy. This is your entry level watercolour pencil. I'm not denting the paper, as you can see. It's just going down so well. There's a vibrancy there. And of course we can use it for watercolour techniques. The reason is there has to be more pigment in a watercolour pencil in order for it to work as such. The beauty is, if I just buy watercolour pencils, I can still use them softly. So that looks the same as their studio pencils. Pretty similar. There we go. Just have to be lighter and lighter in the touch. These also blend beautifully as well. I can go from dark to light within the pencil really easily. Can't really do that with those entry-level pencils because they are already so light. There we go. Oh, I think I've got a bit of dust under there. So always make sure that your sheet is clean underneath. It's a cute effect though. I'll show you with the green as well. So this is your entry level studio pencil, just ordinary colour pencil. And this here is your watercolour entry level pencil. These are supposed to be the same colour, and as you can see, there's a big difference there. So we're mostly getting filler coming down as well. And that is the difference between the two. There's more fillers in these than there are in these, so you do get that difference in vibrancy. I know another technique that is proving popular at the moment is pastels. I was walking past my local chemist and I saw these yesterday. I did feel like painting my hair, but maybe later. But first of all, it got me thinking, because I used to be a pastel artist for many years. It's something I have returned to as well. But I look at these here and I thought they don't look much different than traditional pastel sticks. They were $12.50 and I picked them up for $1. So I was quite excited to try them out. And I do see here they come in vibrant as well. When I read the ingredients, they're pretty much the same as an entry-level pastel. The box even looks the same. When I opened them, they look the same. So I thought, let's find out. And I have tested them out and they work beautifully. You can use them, of course, to colour in on their edges. And you can come in and blend those later. This is particularly good when you're doing large areas and you'd like to fill them with colour. But I'm going to show you another technique. I'll just turn this around a little bit. You can do this with any pastel. Using a Stanley knife or a box cutter or any type of small craft knife, just scraping along the edge to get a little bit of that pastel or chalk off. Like that. That's it. And of course, if you wanted to sharpen this down to a point, you could, and keep your chalk dust. Now the Q-tips that I have are a little rounded. You can purchase cotton or Q-tips that are pointy or massage these into shape. Sorry about my fingernails. I've been painting blackboard paint this week on a couple of doors and I'm paying the price for not wearing gloves. I've been scrubbing away for days. So you can shape that into a bit of a point, or you could get some cotton wool and wind it around a skewer to make very pointed little cotton tools. So picking this up now, whoop, we can then work this into our colouring in sheet. The beauty with pastel is the blending. It's so much fun to blend. And you just do that with layers. So the more you work in pigment, the darker, of course, it gets. Or the lighter you use your touch, the lighter it is. So you've got to think of it, when you're doing this, you're just putting a bit of a whisper on the page. Circular motions are best. And when you're putting more on like that, you're really pushing the colour into the paper. The beauty of pastels is that they blend really well. So by getting another colour, we can come in got no rhyme and reason to this at the moment. I'm just picking out areas so that I can really show you the different ways you could shade and colour. Okay, of course move it out of the way when you want to blow the excess off. It erases really well as well with an eraser. I've tested it out and other things. You can get whole areas out too. As you can see, it lifts off really easily. So hair chalk, maybe you've got some in a drawer somewhere, or maybe you might see it somewhere. That is a thrifty and good idea. I'd also suggest looking at old makeup and eyeshadows. I've used that many a time in pictures and paintings. And you might have some nice glittery blue eyeshadow that you don't want anymore. Of course, using a more pointed Q-tip or cotton tip, or creating one yourself, you'll be able to get into those smaller areas in your colouring in. This technique won't be a surprise to those of you who do rubber stamping. It has been around for a long time, but the rest of you, you'll be excited to know that you never need to throw out your kids' old colouring in textures, and also when you find them, buy them. Now these are Faber-Castell connector pens, but you can use entry-level pens as well, and textures and markers. Anything that's water-based. So in this case, things that are pitched to children are perfect for you. These ones that I'm holding here are probably about 10 years old. They are my children's, and my children had these a long time ago. And I haven't thrown them out, and I've used them off and on over the years. I've got quite a lot kicking about. So what you need is a piece of white glazed porcelain, so an old plate or a bowl. I actually have quite a large bowl here, a plate, but it's a bit hard for you to see in the video. So I'm going to use this smaller one. What you need to do is to scribble on your plate or your porcelain. Now the beauty of this is it's actually not going to dry for a very long time, so you can come back and reactivate it at any time. You need a small amount of water and a paintbrush. Now this one was a shaggy dog like this. I just trim them up. These old paintbrushes, I don't throw them away. I use them for things like this. That's all you need to do. Give them a bit of a haircut. So getting, oh, and I need a little cloth as well. And I always use old rags and cloths because I do a lot of sculpture and assemblage recycled art, and these things that I end up putting paint and things like marker on, I put into my sculptures later on. So my paintbrush is loaded with water, and you can see there I'm turning this into a watercolour type paint, but it's marker. And then I can paint in here. It does take a little bit of practice to see how much water you need to put on your brush. You can always release some of the water by touching on a piece of cotton. You might use paper towel, or a chucks or another piece of cotton. And then if I go back in, this is quite watery, if I go back in and just pick up extra pigment, I can lay down darker bits on here so I can shade. See, you don't need to buy watercolours or paints. You've probably got heaps of children's markers hanging around already. Okay, and it really is a matter of practice. You might want to get a piece of paper and really practice a little bit of, well, how much water do I need to get the effect that I'm after. Start light and don't have the water dripping off your brush. Just needs to be a little damp, and being light, you can always make it darker. I like to remind people that watercolour isn't an exact science. It's supposed to look a little freer than other colouring techniques. So try not to get too precious about the little details. I like the little bits where it comes out of the lines and where it's not quite filled in. I think it looks like it's supposed to look. So I'm going to change colour here, just so you can see what it's like with green. So I'm dipping into my water just to show you again. I'm sort of shaking it off a little bit, dabbing it a little bit on my, see, that's quite runny. I might want to get rid of a bit of that water. That will dry out and I can reuse that later as well. It's like never ending. And I'm going to come in there and paint that. Now I would like it a little darker on the bottom maybe, so I'm just coming in there. With water again, you can reactivate this a tiny bit on the edge. Reactivate it just means to make it runny again. There we go. So I hope you give that one a go, because it's one of my favourite techniques.